The wind blew across the dry plains like a lonely whisper. Dust rolled over the empty trail where a small wagon had stopped the night before. Beside the road stood a young girl named Lily. She was barely 17, thin and small, her shoulders wrapped in a worn brown shawl. The family she had traveled with had left her there at sunrise. "She's too small to help," the man had said coldly. "She'll slow us down." Lily had begged them not to leave her. She had promised to cook, clean, gather wood, anything. But they had only shaken their heads. The wagon wheels creaked away, leaving her alone with the endless land. By noon, the sun burned hot above her. Her legs trembled as she walked, unsure where she was going. There were no towns nearby, only hills and scattered trees. She felt the heavy silence pressing around her. Suddenly, she heard hoofbeats. Her heart jumped. From behind a line of tall grass, a rider appeared. He was enormous, broad shoulders, long dark hair tied behind his head. His horse moved slowly as he studied the girl standing in the road. He was a Comanche warrior. Lily froze. Stories about the Comanche had always frightened settlers. She lowered her eyes, expecting anger or harsh words. Instead, the warrior dismounted quietly. Up close, he seemed even taller. His shadow almost swallowed her small frame. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he noticed the wagon tracks disappearing in the distance. "They left you," he said in rough English. Lily nodded, her throat tight. "They said I was too small." The warrior looked at her carefully. His eyes were not cruel like she expected. They were thoughtful, almost sad. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lily." He nodded once. "I am Dakota." Lily waited, unsure what would happen next. Dakota studied the empty land around them. The wind moved through the grass again. Finally he spoke. "You cannot stay here. Night brings wolves." He mounted his horse again, then extended a large hand down toward her. "Come." Lily hesitated. Every warning she had ever heard echoed in her mind. But the open plains behind her were far more terrifying than the quiet warrior in front of her. Slowly she reached up. Dakota lifted her easily onto the horse as if she weighed nothing. The horse turned toward the distant hills. They rode for nearly an hour through winding trails and quiet forests. As the sun lowered in the sky, they reached a small valley near a clear stream. Dakota stopped. There was nothing there, just open ground and tall trees. Lily looked around confused. "Where is your home?" she asked. Dakota tied the horse to a tree. Then he picked up an axe resting nearby. He glanced at the empty land and spoke calmly. "Here." Lily frowned. "Here?" Dakota nodded once more. "You were left for being small," he said quietly. "So I will build a place where small is safe." Then the giant Comanche swung the axe into the first tree, and Lily realized something surprising. For the first time since she had been abandoned, the sound of the axe echoed through the quiet valley as Dakota worked. Each swing was powerful and steady, the blade cutting deep into the thick tree trunk. Lily sat near the stream, watching him with wide eyes. She had never seen someone so strong. Within a short time, the tree groaned and slowly fell to the ground. Dakota began cutting the trunk into long logs, moving with calm patience. He barely spoke, but there was something peaceful in the way he worked. Lily felt strange standing there doing nothing. "I can help," she said softly. Dakota paused and looked at her small hands. "Logs are heavy," he said. "I know," Lily replied, lifting her chin. "But I'm not useless." For a moment, the giant warrior studied her face. Then he gave a small nod. "Gather branches." "Small ones." Relieved, Lily hurried into the trees. She collected dry sticks and bundles of thin branches. It wasn't much, but it made her feel useful. By evening, Dakota had already stacked several logs in a square shape. The walls of a small cabin were beginning to rise. Lily stared at it in amazement. "You're building this today?" she asked. Dakota shrugged slightly. "Before winter, as the sun dipped behind the hills." He started a fire while Lily arranged the branches she had gathered. Soon warm light flickered across the clearing. Dakota pulled dried meat from a small pouch and handed her a piece. "Eat." Lily took it gratefully. She hadn't eaten since morning. They sat quietly beside the fire. Crickets chirped in the grass and the stream murmured softly nearby. After a while, Lily spoke again. "Why are you helping me?" Dakota looked into the flames. "When I was a boy," he said slowly, "my people were forced to leave our valley. Soldiers burned our homes. My little sister was small like you." He paused. She could not keep up on the long walk. Lily felt a tight knot form in her chest. What happened to her? She asked gently. Dakota stared at the fire for a long moment. She did not survive the winter. The night grew quiet again. Lily suddenly understood something. Dakota wasn't just helping her because she needed a home. He was protecting a memory. The next morning the work continued. Day after day, Dakota cut trees, shaped logs, and raised the walls of the cabin. Lily helped however she could, carrying water, collecting stones, and gathering herbs she found near the stream. Though she was small, she worked harder than anyone Dakota had ever seen. Slowly, the cabin began to take shape. A roof of strong wooden beams covered the top. A stone chimney rose beside one wall. Dakota even carved a small window frame so sunlight could shine inside. When it was finally finished, Lily stepped through the doorway with shining eyes. The cabin was simple but beautiful. Dakota stood outside quietly, leaning on his axe. Lily turned to him. "You built this for me?" Dakota nodded once. "This is your home." The morning was calm when the riders appeared. Lily was outside the cabin, hanging herbs to dry near the doorway. The valley had become peaceful over the past few weeks. Birds often sang in the trees, and the stream flowed gently beside the small home Dakota had built. For the first time since being abandoned, Lily felt safe. Then she heard hoofbeats. Her hands froze. 3 riders were approaching from the ridge above the valley. Their horses kicked up dust as they rode down toward the cabin. Lily's stomach tightened with fear. Dakota stepped out from the trees nearby where he had been chopping wood. His sharp eyes immediately noticed the riders. He placed the axe down slowly and stood tall, watching them carefully. The men stopped a short distance from the cabin. They were rough-looking settlers with worn coats and rifles hanging from their saddles. One of them, a tall man with a thick beard, looked around the valley with a greedy smile. "Well now," he said loudly. "Looks like someone built themselves a nice little place." Another rider laughed. "And on good land, too." Lily stepped closer to the cabin door, her heart pounding. The bearded man noticed her and smirked. "Well, look at that. A tiny little thing living out here." Then his eyes moved to Dakota. His smile disappeared. "A Comanche." The 3 men exchanged uneasy glances. Dakota remained silent, his large figure standing calmly between them and the cabin. "This valley isn't yours," the bearded rider said after a moment. "We're claiming it." Dakota's voice was low but firm. "This land is free." The man snorted. "Not anymore." He nodded toward the cabin. "You built that? Then you can build another somewhere else." Lily felt anger rise in her chest. This was the only home she had ever had. "No," she suddenly said. The men looked surprised to hear her speak. "This cabin is ours," Lily continued bravely, even though her voice trembled. "He built it for me." The bearded rider laughed loudly. "That giant built a whole cabin for someone that small?" The other men chuckled. Dakota stepped forward one slow step. Immediately the laughter stopped. Up close, the warrior's size was intimidating. His shoulders were broad as a doorway and his calm eyes held no fear. "You should leave," Dakota said quietly. For a moment the riders hesitated. The bearded man studied Dakota, clearly weighing the situation. Fighting such a large warrior would not be easy. Finally he spat into the dirt. "This isn't over," he muttered. He pulled the reins of his horse and turned away. The other riders followed him up the hill. Before disappearing over the ridge, he shouted one last warning. "We'll be back with more men." The valley grew silent again. Lily looked up at Dakota nervously. "Do you think they will return?" she asked. Dakota watched the distant ridge carefully. "Yes." Lily's heart sank. "But," Dakota added calmly, "this time we will be ready." Lily looked at the sturdy cabin, the strong trees surrounding the wall.